A seemingly angelic and lovable young girl named Princess Primera is dearly loved by her maid, Yulia, who wonders how this sweet child could possibly become a villain. In a different scene, Primera is seen laughing joyfully with another young girl, while Yulia watches from the side, wiping a tear from her eye as she questions the princess's dark future. The story introduces Yulia von Vandiet, who was born as the first daughter of a low-class viscount in the kingdom of Kuhraum, a land dominated by a massive castle. However, Yulia remembers her past life as an ordinary office lady who had given up on love and fashion. When she was just a baby, she suddenly regained all her memories while her new mother was holding her, and this sudden epiphany gave her a very serious expression that confused her mother. In her previous life, her only enjoyment was playing otome games, and she recalls a cold winter day when she was engrossed in a new game. She was sick and coughing in her room without any heating, and she sadly realizes that she must have died right there and then. After being reincarnated, Yulia now works as a maid in the castle, and she is seen running through a grand corridor after someone calls out her name. As she grew up in this new life, she noticed that this world was the same as the otome game she was playing right before she died, and even though her social status didn't change much, there was one key difference. She realized that a character named Yulia never existed in the original game. The one thing that is truly different is that this country's princess, Primera-sama, is for some reason very fond of her. The young princess is shown crying out for Yulia, asking with a tearful face why she isn't by her side, while Yulia watches her with adoration, thinking that the princess is an absolute angel. Yulia explains that this very same adorable Primera is destined to grow up and become the villain of that otome game. In a flashback to her previous life, a scene from the game shows an older and smug-looking Primera appearing before the heroine, telling her she isn't worthy to be with someone. Yulia remembers playing this part of the game and being very annoyed by the rival character. Thinking back on the sweet princess who loves her so dearly, Yulia becomes determined not to let her grow up to be like that villainous character. She vows to protect the princess and realizes that the current timeline must be set before the events of the game actually begin. Yulia fondly remembers Primera's mother, the beautiful mistress of the king, who was always very kind to her when she was just an apprentice maid. She recalls a time when the pregnant mistress was looking at a flower and then asked Yulia to please hold her child when it was born, a memory Yulia cherishes. But with great sadness, Yulia recalls that the kind mistress passed away while giving birth to Princess Primera. The thought of never seeing that gentle and beautiful person again was heartbreaking, and she remembers promising to care for her child. After the mistress's death, the castle was in chaos because no one could calm the crying baby Primera. The king is shown desperately shouting for anyone regardless of their social status, to make the princess stop crying, while other servants gossip about the situation. Yulia, who was also summoned, felt immense pity for the poor child who was surrounded by so many uncaring people and understood why she couldn't stop crying. When Yulia held the crying princess, the baby immediately became calm and quiet in her arms. From that moment forward, Yulia made a firm decision to protect this person no matter what happened. Years later, Yulia is still an apprentice maid and feels helpless because she doesn't have any particular specialty to help the princess. While cleaning a library filled with books, a senior maid complains about the beginner magic books that keep piling up. As Yulia looks at one of the ornate books, she has a brilliant idea. Yulia realizes that since she was reincarnated into a world of swords and magic, she can learn defensive magic to protect Princess Primera. She remembers the spells from the game and eagerly opens the book, deciding to start by learning fire magic to become a maid who can properly protect her charge. However, when Yulia tries to cast a powerful fire spell, all that appears is a tiny, weak flame that sizzles out pathetically. She then tries water, wind, and earth magic, but they are all just as weak, leading her to the depressing conclusion that she has very little magical power. Yulia begins to panic, realizing that at this rate, she won't be chosen as the princess's personal maid. She learns that Primera will soon be transferred to the princess's quarters, and if Yulia isn't chosen, she won't be able to see her anymore. Her only other specialty is making tea, which sparks a new idea that combines her magic and tea-making skills. If she can't use powerful magic, Yulia decides she can use her weak magic with delicate control. She goes to the kitchen and begins her work, using water magic to prepare the perfect amount of water and then gentle fire magic to heat it up just right. This is something she can only do because her magic is weak, allowing for such fine control. Yulia serves her magically prepared tea to Princess Primera, who takes a sip and her eyes light up with joy. The princess exclaims that it's delicious and the best tea she has ever tasted, making Yulia incredibly happy to see her so pleased. 3 years later, Yulia's unique method of using magic for maid duties has become acknowledged as an unprecedented new genre of magic. As she walks through the gardens with the princess, people whisper about her, noting that she is the top candidate to become the princess's personal maid. While walking together, they pass two women who gossip about Yulia, calling her a plain and unfriendly woman. Princess Primera gets upset and declares that no one understands Yulia. She then looks at her maid with a sad expression and asks if Yulia will eventually leave her to become someone's wife. Yulia sighs to herself, thinking that no respectable person would ever choose someone like her anyway. She then turns to the princess and reassures her with a heartfelt promise, declaring that she will always be her maid. Touched by her words, Primera calls out her name as Yulia vows to stay by her side and prevent her from becoming the game's villain. Watching them from a balcony, a man remarks on Yulia being the rumored, impregnable maid. Full of determination, Yulia strengthens her resolve, deciding that as her maid, she will make the princess happy no matter what the original game story had planned. A maid named Yulia finds herself in a difficult situation as she tries to reason with the young princess she serves, who is yelling and demanding more snacks. Frustrated by the princess's constant demands, Yulia calls her annoying, which only elicits a defiant "geez" from the young royal. The narrative recalls how the princess is always demanding things from Yulia, whether it's an immediate response when called or the preparation of her snacks. The princess's eyes sparkle as she pleads for her treats, while Yulia worries that the princess's selfishness and overeating are worsening with each passing day. Unlike Yulia, other maids happily indulge the princess, believing a few snacks are harmless, but Yulia bows her head in distress, trying to explain that eating too much is not good for her ladyship. Another servant presents the princess with the finest baked sweets, and she impatiently demands them, not caring what they are as long as she can eat. While another maid suggests Yulia shouldn't be so strict, Yulia becomes exasperated with how much everyone indulges the princess. The princess chomps down on a sweet, and Yulia watches with a heavy heart, realizing the princess isn't eating out of hunger but to fight some deep-seated frustration. Yulia reflects on how the princess's eating habits have become more frequent, affecting her figure, and she understands that everyone around Primera sees her only as a princess and not as a person, which must make her feel incredibly lonely. The root of this problem, Yulia believes, lies with her father, the king, who is shown doting on his beloved daughter Primera. The king openly adores Primera, calling her a precious keepsake from his concubine and asking to see her pretty face, while he sternly tells his son, the crowned Prince Arelbert, to stop acting childish and to take care of his younger sister. This leaves young Arelbert feeling lost and wondering about his own place in his father's heart. The king continues to praise Primera, telling her she's perfect just the way she is and that she greatly resembles her beautiful mother. Primera herself feels the weight of this dynamic, blushing as she accepts her father's words despite neglecting her royal duties. She wonders if her father has no expectations for her simply because she is a girl destined to be married off. The narration reveals that the intelligent princess was seen as spoiled by the king's mercy, much like her mother, the concubine, was. Her life is further complicated by a mother, the queen, who sees her as a horrible person and keeps her son Arelbert distant, and a father who loves her more like a pet than a daughter, leaving Primera isolated within her own family. Yulia remembers a time when a younger Primera cried out, telling someone not to steal her family away from her, and now, watching the sad princess eat to fill a void, Yulia finally understands the deep pain behind those words. Determined to be a true ally, Yulia decides she can no longer simply give in to the princess's demands for snacks. She serves the princess tea, and Primera's face lights up, declaring that Yulia's tea is always the best, which brings a smile to the maid's face. Yulia then presents a special chiffon cake she made herself, explaining that it was a recipe from her hometown. Primera takes a delighted bite, exclaiming how delicious it is. Yulia explains that she made it less sweet with the princess's health in mind, and she is happy that her lady likes it. Touched by this gesture, Primera tells Yulia how much she loves her for always taking care of her body. Yulia gently tells the princess that she will always be by her side when she's lonely and that she doesn't have to eat sweets if she doesn't want to. As the princess quietly asks if she is a bad person, Yulia reassures her that all she knows is that she cares for her ladyship very much and wants her to be well. The princess suddenly has an outburst, denying that she eats when she doesn't want to and yelling that she isn't lonely. She accuses Yulia of only being kind because of her royal status, a claim that Yulia quickly refutes. Yulia is heartbroken, feeling that she said something careless out of her own ego and wondering what a simple maid can do for a girl who desperately craves familial love. Overcome with emotion, Yulia begins to cry, thinking that despite her powerlessness, she truly wants to make her milady happy. Primera is shocked to see her maid in tears and rushes to her side, asking if she's hurt. Yulia confesses through her tears that she is crying for the princess, feeling sad and incapable of helping the person she has cared for since infancy. Tears well up in Primera's eyes as she asks if she is truly that important to Yulia. As Yulia continues to sob, Primera apologizes, and soon they are both crying. When Yulia asks why her ladyship is crying, Primera explains it's because she is incredibly happy. Primera then makes a special request, asking Yulia to call her by her name, Primera, when they are alone. She admits that she always wished Yulia was her mom, explaining that because Yulia called her important, she wants to respond to that feeling. She asks Yulia to call her name as a mother would when it's just the two of them. In return, Primera promises to stop being selfish and to control her snacking. With newfound resolve, Primera declares that she will become a fine princess, one she can be proud of in front of both her real mother and her Yulia mama. Yulia thinks that this sweet girl could never become a villain, but she admits that at the time, she didn't know about the many challenges that awaited them, foreshadowed by scenes of political maneuvering and a stern-looking man watching over them. A beautiful and selfless young woman named Yulia serves as the head maid at the princess palace, a position she came to hold after being reincarnated at age 21 from her previous life as an office lady into the world of an otome game. She diligently cares for the lovely Princess Primera, who has been raised to be a kind and healthy young lady. Lately, the princess has been troubled by matters of her love life, sighing with a sad expression as she rests her chin on her hands near a beautifully decorated teacup. She is upset because an engagement has been arranged for her, and Yulia watches over her with concern while standing dutifully nearby. A silhouette shows the young princess and her fiancé standing apart from one another, which hints at the emotional distance between them. As someone who retains memories of her past life, Yulia is not pleased with the idea of the princess being engaged to a man she has never even met. The princess interrupts Yulia's thoughts by calling her name and asking if she knows anything about the man she is supposed to marry, Count Dean Dane von Baum. Yulia's expression turns serious as she realizes she knows the name Dean Dane von Baum very well, confirming internally that she is indeed familiar with him. She knows he is one of the main capture targets from the game and was originally Princess Primera's fiancé who would later become attracted to the game's heroine. A scene from the game's story shows a romantic moment between the straight-laced Dean and the heroine as they hold hands and gaze into each other's eyes, which represents the happy ending where they find true love after overcoming all obstacles. In stark contrast, the young Princess Primera is shown stuffing a large piece of bread into her mouth with a look of immense frustration, showing her current feelings about the engagement. However, Yulia also remembers that in the game, there was another side to Dean that came to light in a secret ending. His true nature was revealed as he blushed intensely with a pained yet pleased expression. In this secret route, Dean was shown kissing someone's foot and revealed a secret desire to be stepped on by the one he loves. Remembering this hidden detail, Yulia is horrified and absolutely refuses to let the innocent Princess Primera get involved with someone with such unique tastes, expressing her strong disapproval internally. She cannot accept the idea of the princess being with a man who wants to be made into a servant. Yulia reflects on how the current events differ from the game, where the princess fell in love at first sight and asked her father, the king, for the marriage. Now, the wedding has been decided by the king, and the princess herself shows no interest, simply hoping that her future husband will be a kind person. Yulia is determined to protect her lady from getting hurt, needing Dean to be a good person for this engagement to work out well. Yulia expertly directs the other maids with a baton, ensuring all preparations for the upcoming tea party are perfect, which earns her praise for her competence as the head maid. She has arranged for the princess and Dean to meet face to face, though she still wonders how this marriage came to be, especially since Dean supposedly fell for the princess at first sight in this new reality. As she ponders whether the situation is as bad as it was in the game, the guests finally arrive. A maid announces the arrival of Count Baum, and Yulia stands ready to greet them as the day of the meeting has come at last. Yulia formally introduces herself as the head maid of the Princess Palace, Yulia von Vandiet. She is surprised to see that Dean is accompanied by his older brother, Alder Sor von Baum of the Kono Knights, an impressively handsome man who only appeared briefly in the game's hidden ending. Alder kindly explains that his little brother was a bit embarrassed to come alone and hopes they can all get along well. While Yulia needs to ascertain Dean's character, she is momentarily distracted by Alder's handsome appearance, which seems to sparkle as he stands before her. The other maids are completely captivated, swooning over how cool he is, But Yulia reminds herself to remain composed and not embarrass the princess, even as she notes that Alder's voice is also quite beautiful. Yulia serves the chiffon cake she specially prepared for the occasion, a dessert that is still difficult to make. Princess Primera is overjoyed, calling it delicious and referring to Yulia as her angel while encouraging Dean to try some as well. Alder and Yulia watch the young couple from a distance, with Alder commenting on how innocent and cute they are together, noting that Primera is 10 and Dean is 13. However, they both quickly realize that the two are sitting in complete and awkward silence, with Dean looking nervous and unable to start a conversation with the princess. Alder then turns his attention to Yulia, calling out to her as Maid. He suddenly reaches out and gently cups her chin with his hand, causing her to freeze in surprise. Yulia is completely shocked as Alder leans in very close to her face with his intense gaze fixed on hers. He calmly excuses himself and explains that there were flower petals in her hair, which he then removes for her. With his hand still near her face, Alder smoothly compliments Yulia on her beautiful hair and mentions he has heard how much the princess trusts her. He then asks if she would please help his little brother by ensuring the princess remains in a good mood, all while Yulia is internally panicking over his handsome face and forwardness. Despite his charm, Yulia stands firm, watching the princess and Dean at the table. She calmly tells Alder that while they both want the engagement to succeed, the final decision must be made by Princess Primera. Alder chuckles, teasingly calling her the impregnable Maid, and suggesting she must be feeling helpless. Yulia confidently states that her only wish is for the princess to be happy, and at that moment, Princess Primera herself decides to speak up. She turns to Dean and asks if he has any questions for her. The princess gently explains that since they are meeting for their engagement, it is important for them to get to know each other and invites him to ask anything he likes. A blushing and flustered Dean stammers for a moment before finally asking what kind of flowers she likes. With a sweet smile, Princess Primera happily tells him that she likes orange-colored roses, and the ice is finally broken between them. The two of them begin to talk, with the princess confidently taking the lead in the conversation, making the atmosphere more exciting. As Yulia watches them, she notes that Dean does not seem to mind the princess leading the conversation and actually looks happy, which makes her wonder if he's not a bad person after all. However, she now faces a new problem: how to prevent his secret masochistic tendencies from ever developing. Alder once again gets Yulia's attention with a charming smile, causing her to blush as she realizes she looked directly at his beautiful face. She thinks to herself that she might have been rushing to conclusions about everything. Alder leans in and suggests that, following the princess's example, he and Yulia should also get to know each other better. He then says with a smirk that he will do his best to get close to her, the Maid, leaving a completely baffled Yulia smiling awkwardly in response. After the tea party ended smoothly, Yulia von Vandiet received a beautifully written letter from Aldersama. She admired his handsome writing while reading that he wished for them to cooperate so his younger brother Dean's engagement to Princess Primera could become official. The letter explained that Dean had started training to be a strong knight worthy of the princess, which made Yulia feel a little worried for him. Yulia contemplated this news with her finger on her chin, thinking that while Dean's training was a good thing, she was concerned he might focus too much and awaken a hidden fetish from the game world where he enjoyed his strict training a bit too much. Sighing, she admired the letter again and decided to help, so she sat at her desk and began to scribble a response. She wrote that the kind-hearted princess would worry if Dean injured himself and also decided to send along some books about knights that the princess might like, hoping to guide him toward becoming an admirable knight. Over time, Yulia and Alder continued to exchange letters, and she watched over Dean's growth from a distance, even starting to receive letters from Dean himself. She was happy to hear he was working on both his literary and military skills, but she couldn't help the way her heart fluttered when she received a letter from a handsome man like Alder. She learned about Alder's playful side when he wrote about how his mouth had gotten used to the best food and playfully asked when she planned on making pie again, which made her giggle while reading. As the pile of their exchanged letters grew, Yulia felt that even if Alder was only using her for his brother's sake, she had come to understand his virtues and they had become good friends. One day, while walking down a cobblestone street, Yulia stumbled and fell, but a hand immediately reached out to help her up. It was Dean, who thanked her for her letters and then suddenly asked for her opinion of his older brother, Prince Alder. Yulia thoughtfully explained that she thinks he is an excellent and respectable person who works as an imperial guard at such a young age. Dean's face lit up like an angel's as he excitedly agreed that his brother is amazing, but then his expression turned sad. He confessed that some people, like his current attendant, always speak ill of his brother when praising him, which Yulia understood was due to jealousy over the succession since they have different mothers. Dean declared with determination that he plans to work on both his training and studies to become a great knight and silence those people, before bowing and asking Yulia to accompany him on a shopping trip. A few days later, they arrived at the Riddle Company, where Dean called out to Yulia as she stepped out of a carriage. Inside, a blushing Dean explained that he wanted to buy a birthday gift for the princess, and Yulia's heart throbbed with happiness for him. Their shopping was interrupted when Alder appeared, much to Dean's delight, and Alder apologized to Yulia for his brother's request while explaining he came because his cute little brother asked him to. They were led to a luxurious VIP room that amazed Yulia, making her feel like the commoner she was in her past life. Dean asked for her confirmation that the princess likes orange roses, and then shyly mentioned he was thinking of a rose-shaped necklace and a message card. Yulia was touched by how seriously he was thinking of the princess and felt that he had grown enough to bring her happiness, but her thoughts were interrupted when Dean called out her name. Suddenly, Alder called Yulia's name as well and held up a beautiful hair ornament, saying it would look good on her before gently taking her hand and placing it in her palm. Yulia blushed deeply and tried to refuse the gift, insisting there was no reason for him to give it to her, but Alder gently insisted, saying he would be troubled if she didn't accept. He looked at her with a slightly sad face and said he would love to see her wear it in her beautiful hair, but Yulia still felt she couldn't accept it. Seeing her hesitation, Alder smiled charmingly and offered a new reason, explaining that his brother's newfound dedication to training and studies was all thanks to her. He asked her to accept the ornament as a token of his gratitude to protect his dignity as an older brother. Yulia giggled, calling it a forced reason, and Alder laughed in agreement before asking once more if she would take it. With a small cough, Yulia finally agreed, and they both smiled as Alder thanked her for accepting his gift. Yulia returned to her room feeling so happy she thought she might be punished for it, thinking about Dean's growth and the lovely gift from Alder. However, her joy turned to shock when she opened her door and found a man with blonde hair already inside her room, standing by her desk. The man, His Highness, greeted her casually before turning to face her with a sly smile, saying he needed to talk to her, and leaving Yulia standing frozen in the doorway. The young maid skips along with a joyful heart, feeling that it has been an amazing day because not only was Sir Dean able to get a present for Primera-sama, but she also received a gift from Sir Alder. The scene then suddenly shifts to a few hours earlier, where the same maid is in her room looking completely frazzled and bewildered, wondering what could possibly be happening to her. Standing before her by the window is His Younger Highness, Filbert Algareth, who greets her with a warm smile and observes that her clothes are plain as usual, asking if she has the day off before kindly offering to pick out something for her next time. Yulia recognizes him as Filbert Algareth, the uncle of both Primera-sama and Prince Arelbert, and a very handsome man with a wild beard, while Filbert gets straight to the point, explaining that he is there because he has something important to tell her. He explains that Prince Arelbert's friend has a son working at the Riddle Company who has passed along some troubling information, revealing that Yulia's father has been seen frequently visiting the money lending and jewelry departments, which leaves Yulia confused and wondering why her father would be in such places. Filbert continues his explanation, noting that while it is not unusual for aristocrats to have debts, her father's loan request was actually refused by the Riddle Company because they had a problem with how he planned to use the money, which surprises Yulia since she believed her family was wealthy enough to live a proper life. He then delivers the most upsetting news, revealing that Yulia's father has become entangled in a rumor about having an affair with an older woman, and even more shockingly, there are whispers that the woman, who is the Grand Duchess, is now pregnant, causing Yulia to begin trembling with anger. An explanation of the royal family tree shows that the Grand Duchess is a princess from the Chagrin Kingdom who entered the crown royal family through a political marriage, but she was widowed at a young age and still maintains a reputation as a sensual beauty, making Yulia wonder how her simple, countryside father could possibly have a relationship with such a powerful woman. Filbert then relays a message he received from Prince Arelbert, stating that the scandal involving her father can no longer be overlooked and that while he would normally issue a letter of dismissal without warning, he is giving Yulia advance notice out of respect for her good track record serving Lady Primera so she can prepare herself. Yulia is thrown into despair, terrified of losing her position as a maid and bringing ruin upon her family, but Filbert suggests that her father may be a scapegoat since he isn't the only one being watched, and there are many other country viscounts who could be targeted instead. As she panics, Filbert suddenly grabs her and pulls her close, telling her to focus on a plan, which involves first finding out the real reason her father was trying to take out a loan and then finding an alibi to disprove the affair rumor, and he even offers to be her witness. He reassures her that because Prince Arelbert sent an advance notice, there is still time to search for the truth, and Yulia realizes this is her chance, quickly deciding they must go to her family's territory right away, leading Filbert to ask if she can ride the speedy cavalry dragons to shorten their travel time. They arrive at the Vandiad mansion, where Yulia stumbles off a large, horse-like dragon, feeling sick from her first time riding, while Filbert compliments her on doing well, and she internally grumbles about the muscle-brain-beard guy, before rushing inside to find her father and stepmother. Her family is gathered on the staircase, completely stunned to see her arriving so late at night, and they are even more shocked to see His Highness with her, as her stepmother expresses embarrassment at being in her nightwear and her little brother Melek excitedly points out that his big sister brought a man home. After questioning her father, Yulia learns the whole story, discovering that a failed investment had pushed him into debt, nearly causing him to resort to gambling, and it was during this low point that he met the Grand Duchess, who easily charmed the simple man by giving him a handkerchief, and his debts only grew when he was directed to the Talbot Company after being refused a loan by the Riddle Chamber of Commerce. Yulia listens to her father's story with her family gathered around her, frustrated at how many loans he took as he fell deeper into debt, but she also finds a clue in his story, suspecting that he was intentionally led to the Talbot Company as part of a larger scheme. She quickly formulates a three-step plan to save them, first instructing her father to improve his business relations, then stating she will use her connections with the Archbishop to prove his innocence regarding the Talbot Company, and finally planning to use public opinion and civilian help to clear up misunderstandings and expose the Grand Duchess's gambling habits. Her father then presents the handkerchief he received from the Duchess, which he has treasured, and Filbert immediately recognizes the material as chagrin fabric, noting that while it is weak evidence, it will certainly fuel gossip among the noble ladies, and he laughs, impressed by Yulia's surprisingly vast network of connections. Filbert remarks that with her skills, she would have been better suited as a military civil official rather than a maid, but Yulia firmly tells him to never say that again, showing she is resolute in her chosen path, while from the balcony she continues to think about the situation. Later that evening, Filbert finds her on the balcony and thanks her for letting him stay the night, but he is surprised to see she has let her long hair down, and Yulia becomes embarrassed, admitting she let her guard down because she was comfortable at her parents' home. He tells her she looks better with her hair down and fondly remembers their first meeting during her apprenticeship, a time when she was so shy she couldn't even make eye contact with him, and she was especially nervous around handsome men without her glasses on. He then gently reaches out and touches her long, dark hair, causing her to blush as he leans in very close to her. As he moves even closer, his face just inches from hers, he softly tells her that she should be more conscious of others, leaving Yulia completely stunned and flustered by his unexpected advance. A dumbfounded Yulia is told she can't just keep exchanging letters forever. She is completely taken aback by this sudden comment. Albert playfully teases Yulia about her letter exchanges with Aldersama, asking how she knows about them and why she is talking about him, while she insists he shouldn't tease her. Yulia recalls a sweet moment when Aldersama wished her good night and sweet dreams before she went to sleep. Her thoughts then shift to a completely different memory of the bearded prince calling her an idiot and commenting on her plain hairstyle that morning. Remembers her mother nagging her about enjoying her job so much that she might become a spinster and is determined not to let her life turn out like her previous one. The bearded prince and her father had left that morning to deliver a letter to the Archbishop, and while she had free time, Yulia had been looking into a gambling bill. Yulia wonders about the person who tried to frame her father and if their civilian connection is still at the palace, knowing she must do something soon. She contemplates her next move, realizing she can't defeat a professional merchant in negotiations by herself. She decides her best course of action is to seek help from the prince and his wife, Duchess Bianca-sama, who was Primera's etiquette teacher and might be willing to lend her strength. Yulia plans to spread information discreetly to the most gossipy ladies, knowing Bianca would be understanding. She considers what she can do within her own limits, which are being a tea-making expert and having below-average magic power. Suddenly, Primera-sama rushes to embrace Yulia, calling her "my angel" and expressing how worried she was. Primera explains that she heard about everything from her uncle and is overjoyed that Yulia is all right and safe. Yulia learns that she has a meeting with the Crown Prince next and worries about the kind of judgment the strict and rational man will pass on her, knowing her father already went to confess to the Archbishop. The Crown Prince informs Yulia that upon hearing rumors of her dismissal, the maids and civilians protested against it, which surprises her greatly. He explains that the Archbishop sent a message asking for leniency for her father since no adultery actually occurred. He continues by telling her that Primera was also against her dismissal and that even the Duchess interrogated her own husband to find the truth, advising Yulia to cherish the people who love her. He tells her to continue serving Primera well before revealing there is one more reason she was summoned today. With a calm expression, the Crown Prince announces that her dismissal has been withdrawn and she is to continue her great work for his sister. Yulia is overwhelmed with relief, realizing she can stay by Primera-sama's side, and as this happy thought sinks in, her mind inexplicably wanders to Alder-sama. The Crown Prince assures her he will continue to investigate the incident to find the culprit and has a plan to make it seem like her family was simply dragged into the affair. Yulia feels a sense of relief wash over her, though a small unsettling feeling lingers as she wonders if the worst is truly over. Her thoughts are interrupted when she is shocked to see His Younger Highness, Albert, sneaking into the room through the window. He explains that he had a break from his office and saw her as he was climbing down a nearby tree. He notices she is preparing snacks for Alder-sama's upcoming visit and curiously asks if she's making her weird sweets again. Yulia offers him some tea while she reads a letter from Alder. Albert playfully tells her she is being too stiff and should just call him Albert, then cheekily asks what she would think if he proposed marriage, but she flatly refuses his offer. Just then, Alder-sama arrives and sternly tells Albert that his jokes are inappropriate and that he shouldn't dishonor Yulia. He advises his brother to consult with the Crown Prince before talking about marriage and warns that hurting Yulia's honor would also damage his relationship with Primera, a point Yulia confirms. Alder tells Albert that some jokes are not funny to everyone and should be kept to a minimum, but Albert retorts that Alder has not even addressed him properly. Yulia senses the hostility in the air between them and wonders why they are acting this way. To diffuse the tension, Yulia steps in and asks them both to calm down and take a seat as the sweets are almost ready. She uses her ice magic to apply the finishing touches to her dessert, creating a peaceful atmosphere. She proudly presents her new creation called ice cream. Albert takes a bite and exclaims that it's delicious, while Alder curiously examines the cold confectionery. Yulia is delighted by its success, thinking it will be a perfect treat for summer tea parties, and she also recalls how the servants had looked at her with terrified expressions. Later, Albert leaves with a casual remark for Yulia to let him know if she wants to be his wife. Alder then turns to Yulia and sincerely tells her to let him know if she ever needs anything, asking if he is inadequate to help her. Yulia reassures him that she is fine and that the Younger Highness helps her as well. Alder steps closer, his gaze serious and unwavering. He earnestly tells Yulia that he wants her to be able to rely on him. Their intense moment is broken when a maid enters, announcing that His Highness is calling for Yulia. Flustered, Alder says he will send her another letter soon, while Yulia's heart feels like it's about to go crazy from the emotional roller coaster. Yulia later serves her ice cream to the Prime Minister, who praises its smooth texture and perfect sweetness, making her feel like she's on a gourmet show. After the pleasantries, the Prime Minister turns serious, acknowledging that while the rumor was a misunderstanding, the fact that her father intended to meet the Grand Duchess cannot be hidden and advises her that if she needs help, she should come to him for the best advice. That a social debut is a grand event where aristocratic daughters, after taking etiquette lessons, present themselves to find a marriage partner and announce their marriageable status. Yulia, however, is distressed as she cannot believe she has to make her social debut at her age, a fate she thought she had escaped by becoming a maid, and feels that more troubles are coming her way, while even Christopher is unaware of the Prime Minister's reasons. A young man named Christopher arrives from the Prime Minister's office with a letter for Yulia, who wonders who it could be from and is shocked to see it's from the Queen Dowager, the king's mother, who appears in a flashback telling Yulia that to recover from her father's scandal, she must have a social debut. A scenario is explained where the daughter of Viscount Vandiad, Yulia, chose to remain a maid so her half-brother could become the family heir, a noble sacrifice that led to bad rumors about the Viscount, who was already shouldering debt from a failed investment, prompting him to seek advice from a high-ranking noble. This fabricated but tearful story continues with the Queen Dowager learning the truth and sympathizing with the Vandiad family, turning the father's scandal into a touching tale, and she announces her full support for Yulia's social debut and her half-brother's position as heir, a plan Yulia realizes must be done. At the royal palace, the Queen Dowager expresses her gratitude to Yulia, crediting her for Primera's good upbringing and offering a dress as a thank-you gift, though Yulia humbly insists she is just happy to serve her highness while elsewhere. She is being measured for a dress by a laughing elderly maid. Yulia feels grateful to be measured but wonders if any dress will suit her, as the old maid gives a confident thumbs up, promising to do her best, and later, when Yulia asks what she is, Designing, the maid cryptically says it will be revealed on the day of the debut. The Queen Dowager then reveals a secret investigation found that a civil officer from the Chagran Kingdom, backed by its nobles, framed Yulia's father, as he wasn't the only one who fell into gambling debt. It's a lousy plan by Chagran and the Talbot Company, who recently acquired trade rights there, to rebuild their economy by making Karam's aristocracy drown in gambling, thereby curtailing the kingdom's national power. With a scary smile, the Queen Dowager explains that the Chagran Kingdom produces gems and its nobles, along with the Grand Duchess, were foolishly desperate to use her for trading foreign currency, leaving Yulia to wonder how the Queen Dowager obtained such classified information as she calmly sips her tea. The Queen Dowager continues to unnerve Yulia by revealing she knows intimate details about her, such as frequent visits from Primera's future brother-in-law and how she bought chocolate for night apprentices, causing Yulia to gulp in panic. But the Queen Dowager just laughs, remarking that even the Iron Wall Maid is a person with flesh and blood. The Queen Dowager muses that Yulia can get upset when teased and wonders why others don't understand this, before adding that she doesn't think it's possible for Yulia to pursue anything with the Coney Knight for the time being. While the royal palace is busy preparing for Primera's approaching birthday, Yulia feels as though she's being played by the Queen Dowager, who hands her a box of materials, telling her she needs to memorize them for her social debut. Yulia finds her maid duties have been completely taken over by others, who tell her it's better to take dance lessons than do paperwork and that she shouldn't risk getting hurt before her important social debut. Feeling frustrated with her sudden spare time and stacks of books on dance lessons and social etiquette, Yulia decides to focus on the remaining debt problem, considering the strict royal purveyor, Riddle Company, and its opponent, the Talbot Company, which is a rising force in the gold lending industry. Yulia then decides to approach the Diender Company, a humble and trustworthy business that deals with daily necessities and is familiar to the common people, and she begins to write a letter, recalling that she knows its chairman and that the late concubine was born there, hoping he can guide her. As she writes, a montage shows how the uproar caused by Viscount Vandiad has intertwined the lives of many people, including himself, the Queen Dowager, a stern man with glasses, a knight, and the young Primera. Finally, the day of the social debut arrives, and Yulia stands beautifully dressed as she is told that she looks wonderful. Yulia appears in a stunning and unique mermaid-style gown, her hair elegantly styled, and Maina compliments her, saying the design suits her very well, to which Yulia shyly expresses her thanks. Admiring her reflection, Yulia is amazed at how well the mermaid dress fits her body, thinking the old maid is an innovative designer, and just then, her brother Marek arrives, calling out to his sister as he walks through a grand arched hallway. Marek, who feels uneasy without his glasses, suddenly sees his sister clearly and points in astonishment, exclaiming that she is beautiful, while Yulia nervously asks if she looks weird, but he reassures her that she might even find a marriage partner. Marek becomes very protective, telling Yulia that even if suitors pursue her, she doesn't have to marry early and that he will be the one to decide who she marries, adding that she should talk to him about these things, though Yulia thinks he's just trying to ease her nerves. Yulia explains to Marek that she doesn't plan on getting married for the time being because there are things she must do before Primera herself gets married, and though Marek coughs awkwardly, he seems strangely happy with her answer. An announcer calls for Viscount Vandiad's successor, Marek Ravi, and Lady Yulia, and as Marek tells his sister it's time, Yulia steels herself with the determination to make both the party and her debut a success. As her full name, Yulia von Vandiad, is announced, she stands ready to enter the grand, once-in-a-lifetime stage of her social debut, in a sparkling and glittering world filled with nobles in formal attire. A young woman named Yulia stands nervously, feeling out of place as she makes her social debut. She can't quite believe she is now a part of this high society, a place she thought she had no connection to. Around the grand hall, guests whisper amongst themselves, wondering if she is the rumored Viscount's daughter and noting how late it is for her to be debuting, calling her a pitiful person. The gossip continues as groups of nobles question if the Queen Dowager is truly backing Yulia, whose family name is unknown to them. They are surprised by how young she is and comment on her unique dress, which they've never seen before, while also recalling rumors that she is Her Highness's famously stoic and unfriendly favorite maid. Yulia stands quietly through it all, her thoughts drifting back to how she ended up here. The Prime Minister had instructed her to make a social debut to manage the scandal her father had caused with the Grand Duchess, a solution deemed better than simply denying the rumors. Suddenly, a woman named Duchess Bianca, the Prime Minister's wife, approaches Yulia with a warm greeting and congratulates her on her debut, complimenting her lovely dress. Duchess Bianca playfully asks if she should invite Yulia to tea parties more often before laughing and admitting the rumors surrounding Yulia have been very entertaining for the nobility. She then cheerfully thanks Yulia for providing such a great topic for gossip, which only makes Yulia feel that high society is a truly scary place. Just then, an announcement silences the crowd from the top of a grand staircase, signaling that the guests of honor are about to arrive. His Majesty the King, Her Majesty the Queen, and His Highness the Crown Prince make their grand entrance, followed by their beloved daughter, Primera, who is celebrating her birthday. Primera wears a beautiful dress and a delicate mask, as is customary for children who have not yet had their social debut. The king welcomes everyone and invites them to enjoy the night. Yulia is completely captivated by Primera's stunning dress. From the royal landing, Primera spots Yulia in the crowd and flashes a bright, happy smile at her. This simple gesture sends a ripple of whispers through the attendees, who now wonder if the rumors of the Viscount's daughter being favored are true after all. Yulia quickly finds herself surrounded by curious nobles and opportunistic young men asking for a dance, feeling trapped and unsure how to handle their persistence as a lady. Just as she feels overwhelmed, a hand reaches out and a voice calls her name. It is Alder, who has come to her rescue. He formally introduces himself to the crowd as Count Keith Less of Celeste and compliments Yulia's dress, explaining that the lovely fabric was recently developed in his own county. Yulia understands that this is all part of a small play arranged by the Queen Dowager, and as they exchange pleasantries, Alder internally notes that now they are officially strangers. Their friendly conversation will seem perfectly natural. The surrounding nobles are moved by the story that unfolds, a tale of a misunderstanding while Viscount Vandiad was working to fund his daughter's debut, leading the merciful Queen Dowager to offer her support to Yulia, who is also Princess Primera's favorite maid. This narrative perfectly resolves all the confusing rumors. As the act concludes, Alder quietly advises Yulia that a man's interest fades if one seems too eager, leaving her to wonder if that line was in the script. He then informs her that as part of their arrangement, his county of Celeste will be favored to produce Primera's future clothing. After he leaves, Yulia reflects on how quickly rumors spread, and Alder turns back to warn her not to be swayed by them, lest she fall short of her own abilities. Yulia remembers her brother Dean mentioning that Alder has his own share of enemies and must have endured many rumors himself. To her surprise, Alder then asks her for a dance, suggesting it would be a shame for her to be a wallflower after all the Queen Dowager's efforts. As they dance, Alder confesses he's not very good at it, a fact Yulia says she deduced from the glaring stares of other ladies who wish to dance with him. He explains that he needs her cooperation. If he dances with her, he can feign exhaustion afterward to avoid other partners. Yulia agrees, but Alder mischievously takes this as permission to dance with her for as many songs as it takes, pulling her into a waltz as she realizes he might have a wicked personality. Later, the two stand on a balcony to rest. Yulia is visibly tired while Alder seems perfectly fine. He reveals the true reason for the multiple dances was to protect her, as the Queen Dowager wanted to prevent too many men from approaching her on her debut night, especially given her status as the princess's favorite maid. Yulia is touched and apologizes for thinking he had a bad personality. She brushes off his compliments, assuming they were part of the script, but he smiles gently and tells her she lacks confidence, sincerely adding that she looks very beautiful tonight. Blushing, Yulia credits the dress, but Alder looks at her and says that she is pretty enough for him. As Yulia wonders how much of his kindness is genuine, he suggests they move from the open balcony. Before they can leave, however, a voice calls out, "Miss Yulia," from behind them, interrupting their quiet moment. Inside the bustling ballroom, Yulia contemplates Sir Alder's true intentions as he leans close to her. She quickly deduces that he is cleverly exchanging sensitive information under the guise of flirting, a necessary precaution to avoid being overheard and causing a political incident, especially concerning the Queen Dowager. A quick thought reveals that Sir Alder, also known as the Count of Celeste, is the Queen Dowager's most trusted confidant and remains politically neutral, which means anything he says instantly becomes the talk of high society. Back in the moment, he moves even closer to Yulia, whispering that her father's reputation has soared since society learned he was merely trying to arrange her debut. While guests chatter nearby, Sir Alder suddenly grabs a startled Yulia, pulling her towards him as he continues to speak. A blushing Yulia acknowledges that she is aware of her father's improved standing in society. Holding Yulia intimately close, Sir Alder explains the political implications of their public display. He suggests that because she has the Queen Dowager's backing, anyone who sees them together would naturally conclude that the Queen Dowager also unofficially approves of the relationship between Princess Primera and Dean. Yulia feels dizzy being mere inches away from his handsome face and pleasant scent, feeling flustered as she is still sweaty from dancing. She quietly mumbles that she is not accustomed to dressing up and behaving like a proper lady, as her usual self is a simple maid, and this is even her first time dancing with someone who isn't her father or brother. Sir Alder catches her mumbling and lets out a small laugh, prompting Yulia to ask if he was teasing her, to which he offers a polite apology. Just then, Yulia's brother Marek arrives, calling out to his sister. Sir Alder notes that Marek has come to escort her back to the party and mentions that her brother has become quite friendly with young Master Dean. When Yulia questions his meaning, he simply dismisses it as a good thing before announcing his departure to greet other guests with his own brother and bidding her farewell. As he leaves, he advises Yulia that it is time for her to return to her rightful position at Princess Primera's side. Feeling that Sir Alder's words held a deeper meaning she couldn't quite grasp, Yulia makes her way through the party. She happens to see young Master Dean chatting with her brother, eagerly planning a future visit to their estate. Yulia then approaches Princess Primera, who is standing beside her father and greets her with a radiant smile. The princess warmly congratulates Yulia on her debut and compliments her beautiful dress. While Yulia offers a polite thank you, her mind set on a decision she had made long ago for this very day. Stealing her resolve, Yulia decides to present herself not as the princess's maid but as Yulia, the daughter of a viscount, and formally address Princess Primera. Overcome with emotion, she approaches the princess and offers her heartfelt congratulations, expressing deep joy in seeing her highness grow up so happily and in good health. Princess Primera graciously accepts her blessings, formally acknowledging her as Yulia, the eldest daughter of Viscount Vandiad. The princess then bestows upon Yulia the honor of addressing her by name from that moment forward, a privilege Yulia humbly accepts with a bow. To have a private moment, Princess Primera dismisses her attendant, Sebastian, asking to be left alone with Yulia for a little while. The moment Sebastian leaves, Princess Primera drops her formal demeanor and joyfully rushes to Yulia, affectionately calling her Mama Yulia. Yulia smiles, reflecting that going through with the debut was worth it, as it finally allows her to speak the princess's name openly in public. Later that evening, as Princess Primera rests in bed, Yulia sits nearby and reflects that even after formally facing her as a noblewoman, their warm relationship as princess and maid remains unchanged. Her thoughts drift to the lovely necklace she received from young Master Dean, recalling how thoughtfully he remembered that the orange rose on it was her favorite flower. From her bed, the princess dreamily asks if she too will one day wear an elegant dress like Yulia's and dance with young Master Dean. Yulia chuckles warmly and reassures the sleepy princess that she will, of course, get to do all of those things someday. As she watches over the sleeping girl, Yulia silently vows that she hopes to always remain by her side through the years, supporting her and helping her find true happiness. Gently embracing the sleeping Princess Primera, Yulia wishes her sweet dreams, reaffirming that her one goal in this new life is to ensure the princess's well-being. The scene then shifts to a garden where two other maids are gossiping, pointing towards Yulia and referring to her as the famous Iron Wall Maid. The maids continue their conversation, noting Yulia's prestigious position as the head maid of the princess's palace, a person who has caught the interest of the king, the queen dowager, and even the second prince. One points out that she is currently speaking with the president of the Riddle Company, an entity so powerful that even nobles dare not cross it, and they admire how Yulia carries herself with such confidence and grace without fawning over him. Despite her composed exterior, Yulia is internally a bundle of nerves as she stands before the country's greatest merchant, a man known for his slyness. She anxiously wonders why he has summoned her, fearing there might be an issue with the loan she took from his company to pay off her family's debt to the Talbot Company. To her surprise, the merchant simply smiles and offers to make her loan interest-free, acknowledging her as a capable woman. During their meeting, Yulia serves him a dessert of pound cake with ice cream she invented. The merchant is delighted by the cold and mellow treat, declaring it perfect for summer and asking if this is the rumored dessert that has charmed the Prime Minister. Yulia confirms he is well informed, adding that while the Prime Minister may not admit it outright, his appreciation is clear, and it is always a pleasure to have one's cooking enjoyed. The merchant's tone then becomes serious as he thanks Yulia on behalf of the Diender Company. He reveals that her actions to settle her family's debt inadvertently triggered the downfall of the Talbot Company, an upstart enterprise with a bad reputation, and that they will soon be out of business for good, a revelation that leaves Yulia completely stunned. He admits that he had misjudged her capabilities. Yulia is shocked to learn that the Diender Company, which she had always perceived as a simple old store, is actually a major player in the banking industry. She reflects that she never intended for such a massive outcome, as she was only trying to investigate the Talbot Company. The merchant continues to praise her, saying the Riddle Company was deeply impressed by her prowess, comparing her actions to a lion hunting down mice. He then stuns her further by suggesting that her debt might soon be resolved and could even be returned to her as a commission, urging her to discuss the new repayment terms with him. Later, Yulia visits the Diender Company headquarters, where she meets Princess Primera's maternal grandfather, who warmly greets her. Seeing her surprised expression, he playfully asks if she thought an old man like him would take longer to handle the situation, before informing her that the incident with the Talbot Company is nearing a satisfactory conclusion. Yulia admits she never imagined her father's troubles would play a part in resolving her own affairs, while the grandfather and his wife express their gladness that she chose to rely on them. Princess Primera's grandfather explains that since they are forbidden from seeing their granddaughter, they have always wanted to repay Yulia for keeping them updated on her life. He warns her that politics is a volatile world where money and people are always shifting, and he asks her to send a warning if the princess is ever in danger. Yulia feels this is a heavy request and briefly wonders if she should feign ignorance if such a situation were to arise. Taking her hand, the grandfather expresses his concern that the queen might become suspicious of her due to recent events and advises her not to visit them for a while. Yulia protests, but he laughs and reminds her that she managed to secure loans from both the Riddle and Diender companies, a feat few can achieve. He praises her for her grace in handling her debt while simultaneously uncovering injustice, earning her the high regard of many merchants who were ready to support her. Yulia firmly states that her visits have nothing to do with the queen. She patronizes his shop simply because she loves the delicious and fairly priced desserts. Impressed by her bold spirit, the grandfather laughs and remarks that she is truly worthy of being Primera's head maid, assuring her that the Diender Company will always have her back. Just as predicted, a letter from the Diender Company arrives regarding her debt. Yulia is astonished to find that not only has her debt been cleared, but she has also received a surplus of money, which she assumes is extra compensation for the overpayment of interest she had made. She fondly recalls the kind, grandfatherly expression of the old man as he handed her an orange rose and asked her to take good care of the princess, deciding that some things are best left unquestioned. Yulia lets out a deep sigh of relief, thankful that the burden of her family's debt has finally been resolved. She knows the Talbot Company will likely lay low for a while, but she is also certain they are resilient enough to make a comeback eventually. Her thoughts are interrupted as Princess Primera bursts into the room, tapping excitedly as she exclaims she has big news. The princess joyfully announces that her father has given her permission to travel to Marquis Nashandra's fief for her birthday, and even her brother will be joining them on the trip. Yulia's face lights up with happiness, and she clasps her hands together, overjoyed at the wonderful news that she gets to go on a trip with Princess Primera.